Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, Emily.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so happy to be here.
I am super stoked to have you on the show today because I love a girl who can talk about unconventional ways. Because we grow up, we go to school, we are taught that everybody, you go to school, you get a job, you get good grades, you ride it out till retirement, you put your money, you're in the States, I'm in Canada, but we all have different investments account we can put money into. And that's not truly the way to get ahead in life, is it?
No, and actually, it's the way to get further behind as time goes on. In my grandparents' generation, you could work a blue collar job, buy a home in your 20s, have your spouse stay at home and watch the kids, and put away money in your retirement account, or you'd have a pension through your employer. And it was like the conventional way actually did work if you were okay with, a middle class living. I'm sure I'm just preaching to the choir because we all know it just isn't that way anymore. It's like real estate's through the roof. And if you look at like the ratio of what our earnings are to what it costs us to buy a home now, it's wild. And so we see many more dual income households, and we see people renting longer because they can't afford to buy. We see people who aren't contributing anything to their retirement, but also don't have much of a safety net lined up because they're not working for companies that are offering a pension. And at least in the States, in a lot of people's mind, kind of a question mark around how much Social Security will even be there and how much you'll get when you retire, because it's the way it's funded isn't necessarily sustainable. And partially because we're seeing the amount of folks that are retirement age now compared to the number of workers who are contributing into the system, that ratio has really changed. We live in a different world. And so if we're going to try to continue to use the strategies that worked a generation or two generations ago, we're not going to get the same result. And so that's also why I like the unconventional ways, because we get to think outside the box and leverage the tools that we have for the world that we currently live in.
I love that so much because manifestation and money, that is where I think those creative ideas come in and
Yes.
really can compound because you talk about money, the ways they talked about making money and saving money used to work. They don't work anymore. So people go, oh, like, I guess I just got to give up, throw in the towel. They don't work anymore, that traditional method that we've been taught. But when you bring in manifestation, sometimes it just is manifesting, hearing a conversation like this to open up your eyes
Yes.
to, okay, what is unconventional? What are the other options out there? So
Yeah.
for you, Emily, what was your path to what does unconventional look like?
So there was a conversation that I guess I manifested. I love that you said sometimes you just manifest a conversation, right? So I was working a corporate job and I was in sales, and so sometimes we had to do these hosted dinners. And I was out to dinner with two doctors. And so because it was such a small group, we talked about the sort of on topic things that were related to this business dinner, but then the conversation turned personal. And this one doctor, Dr. Schwang, turned to Dr. Wynn and he goes, "Hey, you got 5 kids. How are you going to put them all through school?" And I was expecting the answer to be something like, "Oh my gosh, we're just setting aside a certain amount of money, or we're funding like 529 programs to get some tax advantage." And what he said totally blew my mind. And I really didn't know what it meant. But he said, "Well, what we've done is we got a whole life policy for every child, and we're funding that. And then we've used the cash value of that policy to buy cash flowing rental properties in the bad part of SoCal, like the part that you didn't want to live in, but that was where the numbers made sense. And then the cash flow from those rentals is paying back the loan on the policy. And then they'll have those funds for education, for undergrad, if they want to go to medical school, etc." And the other doctor's just nodding along, like, "Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Sure. Like, this is some known strategy." And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know what the heck they're talking about, but also this is something I've never heard before. And it illustrated to me why the rich get richer. And we often think it's a resource thing, like, well, they have money that we don't have, but they have knowledge that we don't have. And I think in the year 2026, there's less and less excuses for that because it used to be you'd have to join the country club or you'd have to find a way to like hobnob with people that had a certain amount of money. Well, now we have YouTube, we have Chat GPT, we have Claude, we have you name it. The education, the information is out there. But for me, it was this conversation that opened my mind to the possibility that perhaps what I had was a knowledge gap. And that if I could just start to learn some of these things that I heard, then maybe my outcome would be different. And so that was manifestation number one, was that conversation. Then, of course, as sometimes happens, you kind of go back to sleep. You go back into your routine. You go back to whatever your day to day is, right? And some months pass and the conversation is long out of my mind. And I was talking to a coworker and she said, "Oh, yeah, I just had a meeting with my wealth strategist." And my ears pricked up. I was like, I had never heard of this. I didn't know anyone who had a wealth strategist. I'm like, "You have a wealth strategist? I want a wealth strategist. Will you introduce me?" And she said, "Well, he's kind of unconventional." I was like, "Unconventional? That sounds even better. Please, you must introduce me." And that manifestation turned into me learning the actual mechanics of some of these tools that we can put in place to completely change our financial picture. And it changed my life. It wasn't the only thing, but those two conversations created a ripple effect that has turned into me sitting on this podcast talking about this work.
Yeah. So can you share with the listeners who might be like, well, what kind of things did he share? What would
Yeah.
be an unconventional type idea that a wealth strategist might share?
Yeah. So he taught me the premise of infinite banking, which is exactly what that doctor was doing with his children. Now, you don't have to fund real estate and then have real estate then pay back and fund education, but this concept of really old traditional mutual life insurance companies that have been around for hundreds of years, but taking what would be an off the shelf whole life policy, which is not that exciting and actually has some significant drawbacks to it from a wealth building perspective, and highly customizing it so that even though it's technically life insurance, we're actually customizing the policy to reduce the death benefit as much as possible and increase the cash value as much as possible. And then we have this mechanism that offers a lot of tax advantages, legal protections, guaranteed compound interest. Like there's a lot of mechanisms built into that that we pick up when we put our money in there. And then we have access to our money. It's technically through a policy loan. You're loaning it to yourself. And then you use that loan to either replace a different loan from a bank, right? Like a student loan, or to go out and get an asset that's going to make you money. So like that doctor did where he bought cash flowing properties, use the cash flow to pay back the policy loan. Well, now you have two things. You have a cash flowing house and you have all the cash value back in your policy. And so is that the only thing that I use and teach? No, but that's a perfect example of wealth strategy because at its heart, wealth strategy is, can we redirect the money through an extra thing and pick up some benefit? Mm-hmm. So instead of the money sitting in a savings account and then going to buy the new car, can we do an intermediary step where we get an additional gain? Right? And that's the idea. And for everybody, the picture might look a little different. We might leverage some different tools, but that's what we're trying to do is have our money work harder. So instead of it doing one thing for us and now we're back at zero and we've got to fill that bucket up again, can we create a bucket that is naturally refilling? Can we pick up some tax advantages that make our money work harder for us? And The answer is yes. Like, and we talked about like Canada versus the US. Not every strategy works the same in every country, but there are strategies that work in every country that allow you to be savvier and have your money doing more for you.
Yeah, I'm listening to that, and there's little spidey senses going off in me because I love real estate. That is one of my favorite investment modules.
Yeah.
So a person could take out this, it's called a whole life policy, right?
Yep. I call
So,
them infinite banking policies
okay,
just because
infinite.
they're a specially designed version of whole life. Yeah.
Okay, so they're taking out this infinite banking policy. They're buying a rental property. Yes, they're getting the positive cash flow every month, but the tenant is also technically paying off that mortgage loan. And that
Correct.
mortgage loan is also paying off that policy. It's like this crazy
Yeah.
ripple effect of that rental property is actually paying off two
Yes.
loans simultaneously. And the equity, likely, if you look at real estate over time, property values are going up. So you're also
Right.
gaining the equity on that home too.
And then here, this one will blow your mind, Jen, because you're exactly right on all those layered benefits. And then add in the fact that not every company does this, but I only design policies with companies where the policy loans are what we call non-direct recognition. What it means is that let's say you have $100,000 in cash value and you take out a policy loan for the 100,000 and put it into real estate. The company will still pay you guaranteed compound interest on the full cash value of your policy, even while all of that money is out on a loan. Now you're getting even more. So the dollars picked up guaranteed compound interest, they picked up a death benefit, which is incredible in terms of legacy wealth and generational wealth. And then those same dollars got invested into real estate, picked up a cash flowing asset, picked up tax advantages there, are picking up the depreciation and the actual appreciation of the real estate and the equity pay down. So it's like, holy moly, now this same pool of dollars is doing 6 or 7 things for us at once. We can see the compound effect of that over time versus what we were taught about money. And what we were taught about money is basically the envelope method. And it used to be you'd put cash into different envelopes, right? Like, here's how much I need for rent and for groceries and whatever. Well, now we do it in a digital way. The money is just sitting in an account or maybe multiple accounts. Maybe you have a savings account for vacation and a savings account for this and that, but it's just sitting in these buckets waiting to be spent. And once it's spent, that bucket is empty, and now it's your job to chip away at refilling it. When we start implementing wealth strategy, our dollars are doing far more for us. And because of that, our life totally changes. And it doesn't happen immediately, but it happens faster than you'd think.
Yeah, when you say it that way, I think of a person going, grinding it out. They're working 40 hours a week at a job. They feel like they're putting their money in their savings. They think they're doing the right thing. Meanwhile, inflation is inflating faster than any interest is earning in that bank account. And yes, you're spending it. Gosh, I don't know if groceries are like it down there right now as they are up here in Canada, but the cost of
Yeah.
everything is just
And
going
now
up.
gas prices and
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Whereas if you can take some of those dollars, maybe yes, you still want to have somewhat of a savings so you can sleep well at night. But
Right.
if you can take some of those dollars and put them to work for you so
Yeah.
that you're not physically having to go to work, those dollars now have a job for you. You're multiplying your money without you having to put in more of the physical effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we think about manifestation, manifestation is often a quantum leap, right? So it's like instead of, I guess nobody's going to see this, but instead of getting to point A to point B on a timeline, if you visualize that, if you were to fold the paper in half, now those 2 points meet the beginning point and the end point, and it's a much faster route, right? It's like a shortcut. And so often when we're open to that, what we'll get is not the fully hatched plan. I have never gotten the fully hatched plan from any sort of divine download. You get the breadcrumb trail, you get the conversation, you get a little spidey sense. You meet a really cool person, and then it turns out they're doing something interesting, and you feel yourself wanting to learn more about it. And you follow that inner guidance. And that's how we get places. But typically, where we're led are to these things that allow us to quantum leap, that give us a shortcut. And we need those because, back to what we talked about first, if we're doing the very linear point A to point B, old school way, often we're not going to get where we want to go, or the amount of time that it takes. It's sad. And I'm like such a natural optimist that I hate to even talk about like outcomes that are less than ideal. But we all know someone in our lives who worked for many, many years at a job that they didn't love and passed away either before retirement or very early into retirement. And so when we recognize that we got to enjoy the journey and we can't be sort of slogging away hoping that we're eventually going to arrive where we want to get, because we may never get there. So we want the bigger, better, faster, but we also want to be guided to the things that are naturally fun for us. There's lots of investments I don't do because I'm not interested in them. And they're like, I tried to get myself to learn crypto. I joined a $97 a month membership where you could be on Zoom calls all day and they teach you everything. And I was like rah rah about it for a week. And then I couldn't get myself to do it. It's like, it's just not my thing. Do I own some Bitcoin? Like, yeah, I own some Bitcoin, but not like, I don't know how to do all the stuff they're doing. But for the people who are in it, oh my gosh, they love it. They're into it. They have fun researching all the different companies. That's not fun for me. So it's why make money that way. Mm-hmm. I like real estate, parts of real estate, just like you do. And so it's like, find the thing that you like and do that, because the doing and the enjoyment is just as important as the money that you're getting on the other side of it.
Yes, that is huge. And I hope people listening to that really go with that because, like you said, life gives us breadcrumbs along the way. If you are getting the breadcrumb that is saying, I don't want to keep working at this job, yet you keep showing up for it, that is going against what your soul is trying to guide you into doing. If you can say, hey, let's open my eyes. Yes, you might still keep showing up at that job until you find something better or different, but allow yourself to pivot. Same thing with investments and the things you love. You can make money out there in so many ways. If you can align it with something that you enjoy doing, you're more likely to actually do it and put in the effort behind it and learn the strategy. So the breadcrumb things I think is so important because somebody might listen to this conversation and go, hey, like, let's save this episode. Let's save this episode so I can come back and listen to it. Because like you said, sometimes you fall asleep and you get busy in your day, you're dealing with kids and the conversation just kind of gets pushed to the side. But you have another conversation with somebody and you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that podcast episode I listened to, aligning with this new piece of information I got. And then all of a sudden the sparks hit and you're like, I got it. Here's my idea. Here's what I'm going to go do. And then they just roll with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the energy of possibility. Mm-hmm. It's like there's something so juicy and delicious about it because layered in there is hope and expansion and surprise and delight. And so the more we can just plant the seeds of possibility, the better. Mm-hmm. And listening to podcasts like this is a great way to start. And the example you're giving where someone's going to a job that they don't love, yeah, you may not just be able to immediately make that change, but are you planting the seeds of possibility for yourself? Are you opening your mind to ways that it could be different and starting to follow the things that feel interesting to you? If you do that, promise your life will be different in a year. Mm-hmm. It's divine law. It really is. You will activate the law of attraction, which all of us are already activating all of the time. But if you're in a position you don't like, it's easy to attract more of things you don't like. Mm-hmm. So what you have to do is flip that and focus more of your energy on what you do want and what would be fun and what maybe could be possible. And then you will start attracting more of that. And you do that over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, your life will be totally different.
Mhm. Yep, 100%. And on that note, I would love for you to share with people what your biggest piece of advice would be for them to go out and create a life of financial abundance.
Gosh, I mean, believe that it's possible for yourself, period. Because if you don't think it's possible, no one else will be able to convince you. And really get real with yourself about what you want and have an inner relationship, because the world of financial investing and even the world of manifestation, like everything related to money, there's one side of the coin where it's like everything is possible and it's amazing and it's abundant and there are opportunities everywhere. And the other side of that same coin is there are scammers and fraudsters and people who will try to convince you that this is the bulletproof proof investment and just sign here on the dotted line. And I mean, I've lost a lot of money that way, believing in things without really checking in with my own intuition, without properly vetting opportunities. And I don't say that to scare you off from it. It's this path is 1000% worth taking. And I really believe that there's enough abundance out there for everyone. And so to distill it down to one or two pieces of advice. Number one, believe it's possible for you. And number two, just get open and curious about what it could look like for you and just follow that curiosity and see where it takes you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I know we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg here with you. I would love for you to share with the listeners because I know you have your own podcast. And listeners, Emily has so much to share. You're paying off your mortgage in 4 years, like a 30-year
Yeah.
mortgage in 4 years. There's so many golden nuggets that Emily has to share. So where can listeners reach out and connect with you further?
Yeah, so my website is emilywilcox.com. So definitely feel free to check that out. I'm on most social media platforms at M Makes Money. So you can connect with me there. And both on my website and on social media, if you click on my link tree, there's an opportunity to book a free wealth connection call. So if you're curious about wealth strategy and how it could apply to your situation, you're welcome to book that and we'll just get on and chat. And it's not like a vaguely disguised sales call where, you know, like sometimes connection calls are, we'll just chat. If it makes sense to work together, great. And if not, then you've got a couple nuggets for me that you can go take and do with as you please. And then my podcast is called The Joyous Path to Millions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Emily, and having this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.